Revelation chapter 7, it's one of those chapters that people debate about endlessly. But what if it's not some big, unsolvable mystery? According to commentator Chuck Missler, if you just approach it literally, the whole chapter changes. It stops being a mystery and becomes more like a series of puzzles, where every piece has a specific scriptural answer. I think that's a fascinating way to look at it. So let's dive in together and see if we can put the pieces together. So let's set the scene. The previous chapter, Revelation 6, leaves us on this absolutely terrifying cliffhanger. The sun has gone dark, the moon is like blood, stars are falling from the sky, and the people of Earth are just screaming out this one question. It's the ultimate question of survival when faced with the wrath of God. And that's the entire point of chapter 7. It's like the cosmic action movie hits pause specifically to answer that one question. You asked who can stand? Okay, here's your answer. And the answer, it turns out, comes in two very distinct parts. Before the next round of judgment gets unleashed on the planet, the camera, so to speak, zooms in on this one group that gets a special, supernatural seal of protection. This isn't for everybody. This is a hand-picked crew with a very specific job to do during this incredibly intense time. And this group is, of course, the famous 144,000. Now, this is where this particular interpretation really veers away from others that see this as all symbolic. The rule here is to take it all at face value. The number, who they are, their family line, no symbolic guesswork allowed. So let's be crystal clear on this. 144,000 doesn't mean a whole lot of people or the church in a symbolic way. The text actually does the math for us. It is literally 12,000 people from 12 very specific tribes of Israel. The argument is that this level of detail is put there for a reason, to remove any doubt. And why are they sealed? It's all about protection. You have angels literally holding back winds of destruction, waiting until these servants of God are marked on their foreheads. This seal is what gets them through the chaos so they can do their work. Okay, now here's where it gets really fun. Take a look at this list of tribes. If you've read the Old Testament, you're used to seeing the 12 tribes listed out, and it's usually the same familiar names. But this list is weird. It's a strange lineup, and that, right there, is our first big puzzle. Yeah, anyone who knows the tribes of Israel would immediately spot two huge omissions. Two of the most prominent tribes in Israel's history, Dan and Ephraim, are just gone from the list. Why? This isn't a typo. It's a deliberate clue that we're meant to figure out. Now, a really common theory people jump to is the whole idea of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. But according to our source material, that's a complete dead end. It's a historical and biblical myth that just distracts us from the real answer. You've probably heard this idea, right? That after the northern kingdom of Israel was conquered by Assyria, 10 of the tribes were just scattered and disappeared forever. It's a popular story, but the Bible itself seems to completely disagree with it. And here's the kicker. Long after these tribes were supposedly lost, you have New Testament writers like James and Peter addressing their letters to all 12 tribes. They clearly assumed they still existed and knew who they were. The historical record shows the populations got mixed up and scattered for sure, but they were never truly lost. So that popular theory, it just doesn't hold water. So if the tribes weren't lost, then leaving Dan and Ephraim off the list has to be intentional. There have to be very specific reasons for it. All right, let's get into the source's explanation and see how this puzzle gets solved. First up, Dan. His absence isn't an accident. It's seen as a pointed disciplinary action. There's a long, documented track record of this particular tribe leading the nation of Israel astray. I mean, from the very beginning, Dan's patriarch Jacob prophesied he'd be a serpent. And sure enough, his tribe was the first to set up an idol in the Promised Land. Later, they hosted one of the 2 golden calves that literally tore the kingdom in half. It's just this constant pattern of rebellion, and being left off this list of sealed servants seems to be the final consequence. Okay, so puzzle piece 1, Dan, is in place. But what about Ephraim? Well, his story is different. He wasn't kicked out of the club. According to this view, he's actually on the list. You just have to know where to look. He's hiding in plain sight. Let's just walk through the logic here. It's actually pretty cool. The list includes Manasseh by name. It also includes his father, Joseph. But here's the key. The tribe of Joseph is really just a placeholder for his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. So if Manasseh is already listed separately, then the name Joseph can only be a stand-in for the other son, Ephraim. He's included, but maybe he's been demoted for his own tribe's history of idolatry by being named under his father. And just like that, the tribal puzzle is solved. But that was a puzzle inside the first part of our answer. Remember the original question, who can stand? The 144,000 are the first answer, but they aren't the only ones. After they're sealed, the vision pulls way back, and we see the results of their work. A massive, uncountable crowd of people who are also saved. And this brings up a really critical distinction. We're seeing two very different groups of saved people, and their destinies are distinct. It all seems to depend on when they came to faith, either before this period of judgment begins or during it. This all hinges on the concept of the rapture, which is the belief that the church is removed from earth before these events start. Let's look at this side by side. On the left, we have the 24 elders, who represent the church. They're kept out of the tribulation. They sit on thrones, they wear crowns, they reign as kings. But then look at the group on the right, the tribulation saints. They're saved out of it, meaning they went through it, and their posture is different. They stand before the throne. They have palms, not crowns. They serve in the temple. Both groups are saved, for sure, but the source emphasizes their experience, their role, and their reward are described in very different ways. And this distinction between the two groups leads to what the source considers a vital warning. Seeing that people can be saved during the tribulation might lead some to think, oh, I can just wait and decide later. But relying on that so-called second chance is presented as an incredibly dangerous gamble. So the ultimate takeaway here is that Revelation, from this point on, isn't primarily written for the believers who are already secure. It's actually meant to be a kind of handbook, a survival guide, for those who miss the boat, so to speak, the ones who find themselves in that future time of trouble, so they can understand what is happening and why. And that brings the whole study right back from future prophecy to a very present reality. The conclusion here is that understanding these details isn't about winning a Bible trivia night. It's about recognizing that your place in this whole story isn't determined by what you might do then, but by the choice you make right now.